Tupelo, and Atlanta. Ace Bolt and Screw, powered by DeWalt Tools. You know what's crazy is the two guys who started the Egg Bowl last year, who I think are both off the charts talented, and were thrown into, you don't want to play as a true freshman, and you darn sure don't want to play it when you're not a top 10 recruiter, where they can insulate you and so on with talent at Bama and LSU and Georgia and Florida, if that has to happen. But you don't want to do that at Mississippi State, Ole Miss, Arkansas. But the two guys who started the Egg Bowl, Plumlee and Shrader, may be moving positions. I don't think it's permanent, because I think they'll end up somewhere else, or they'll fight their way back. Something will happen, because they're too good at QBs to just move permanently, but we'll see. That's why we wanted to welcome in Steve Robertson, genespage.com, 247 Sports, on the Parish Brewing guest line. Steve, what is the latest on Garrett Shrader playing wide receiver?
Well, the information that we have is that this is something that's actually a topic that they've broached before, that as the quarterback competition kind of began to shake out and the guys began to establish a pecking order, that if Garrett wasn't going to be the starter or a strong number two, there was a possibility that he could help the team in another capacity, kind of like as an H-back type role, or be a guy that could, carry the football or be a receiver as well. I mean, people forget, he's, 6'5", 200 pounds. I mean, he's a guy that's very athletic. And so I think it's about getting the best athletes on the field, and I think Garrett Shrader is a team guy first, and not to mention this season doesn't count towards his eligibility. So if he's got a chance to get out there and have some fun and help the team in another position, it's probably a good decision for him.
So do you think this is going to happen, or is already happening?
Well, I think they're taking some reps to kind of figure it out. And that's what we were told, earlier in the week, that he was going to take some routes at wide receiver and just kind of see how he did. So I think right now it's probably a little bit experimental, but I think it's very much a possibility, and at this point maybe even a probability. But I said on your show a couple of weeks ago that Will Rogers had begun to emerge as the number two. If you're Garrett Shrader and you're a competitor and you're a guy that can help the team, I don't want to sit there and signal in the play. You're going to find a way to get on the field. And let's be honest, this Mississippi State wide receiver core needs some playmakers. You need some guys out there, not to mention the whole gadget play element that it would bring with Garrett Shrader being on the field. You line him up as a running back or as a slot receiver, there's just no telling what Mike Leach could dial up having an extra arm on the field.
How wild is this, Steve, that Shrader and Plumlee could end up doing this after they both started the Egg Bowl? And I thought, considering the hand they were dealt last year, played some really good football.
Yeah, it is wild. And that was the thing, too, is, when Lane Kiffin was hired, I think most people felt like Matt Corral might have been the better fit, but that you would certainly see a package for Plumlee and maybe even see him go to slot receiver. I don't think that was completely out of the realm of possibility. I think this thing with Shrader probably is a bigger surprise, but it's wild to think about how those two guys as true freshmen go in there and just, compete their tails off and try to get a big win and keep their team's bowl hopes alive. And then neither one of them are expected to take the opening snap the next year. It is a wild turn of events, to say the least.
Garrett Shrader, I mean, describe what you think of him athletically, Steve.
Oh, I mean, I think he's clearly a four-star type athlete guy. I mean, especially with his length and his size. I mean, and listen, we all saw what he did against Kansas State. I mean, that helicopter play, that's kind of been the defining moment of his career. I mean, even though he came up, probably the length of the ball short of reaching the first down, the guy really earned the respect of his teammates for being a guy that's willing to lay it on the line for the betterment of the team. This is a guy that's he's not scared of contact. He has no aversion to play. I mean, he's one of those guys that will do what's necessary. And, I thought in the Egg Bowl, there were some times, some pretty bright moments there. There were some freshman moments as well. But I think this is a guy that can help Mississippi State. I mean, even if it's not the quarterback position, I think that he's a guy that makes them a little more dynamic. It's just going to be how well can he catch a football. Quarterbacks, by and large, generally had the best hands on the team because they handle the snap. So they're handling the football every single play. But it's a little different, when you've got that thing coming from KJ Costello that's kind of whipping around out there than it would be just taking a snap. So it's interesting to say the least, but I do think that he is a guy with the athleticism to help Mississippi State. It would be very intriguing to see how Mike Leach wants to use him.
Steve Robertson on the Out of Bounds show. would you say it's a done deal that Will Rogers is the number 2 QB?
I think if Mississippi State play ball this weekend, Will Rogers will be number 2. Is it completely over? No, but I think we're getting there. I think we've absolutely. Maybe they were kind of neck and neck for a while, and then Rogers kind of nosed ahead. I think the scrimmage this past weekend has probably given Will probably a pretty clear positioning as the number 2 right now.
That's insane. It really is. I mean, I'm not for either one. But Shrader proved, this guy isn't chopped liver. This guy proved in what I thought was an awful offense, no efficiency, no rhythm or tempo. I'm not sure Joe Moorhead could have done a worse job Labor Day through Thanksgiving last year. And yet the young man proved that he could play, make plays, make throws, run the football. I mean, he made, Steve, 3 or 4 plays against Ole Miss that I thought were unbelievable. So this is going to be fascinating to see. But you just made a great point, is that this doesn't count against him, so he can play wherever and contribute and still either go wherever he wants to go, Steve, and continue to play QB in 2021, right?
Yeah, and this could be kind of a defining moment in Garrett Shrader's career. I mean, there were a lot of schools that recruited him more as an athlete than a quarterback. And, of course, Mississippi State took him as a quarterback. But let's just say this year you've got this experimental year. You've got the mulligan year to go out there and kind of reinvent yourself if you want to. What's to say Garrett Shrader doesn't come out here and have a big year at receiver or have at least a good year and say, you know what, maybe this is my path for college football. Perhaps maybe – this is the best direction for me. And if you had this year that doesn't count anyway, why would you spend it on the sidelines? I would find a way to get on the field.
Great point for Shrader or Plumlee. Now, look, it would be very difficult for me to change, if I'm either one of them, to switch positions permanently, because let's just be honest, that's the rock star position. I mean, they've already got a taste of it as true freshmen. 4 weeks into the season, they were the big man on campus, and they had already proved that they could make plays against SEC teams. But we'll see. All right. Well, anything else on? We've got about a minute here. Anything else on Costello, Will Rogers, Garrett Shrader, Steve?
No, I just think that the depth chart is now kind of taking shape, and I think that's why these things kind of leak out. I think it's in advance of Mike Leach, naming a starter. I mean, I think everybody's known from the beginning that KJ Costello is expected to be the guy. I don't know that most people expected Will Rogers to have the camp that he's had, but that's encouraging for this season and for the future. And I think all 3 of those guys are going to see the field this year.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to bet $100 for next Labor Day, I'd bet it on Will Rogers starting. Would you?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Without question.
Steve Robertson, the Boneyard Podcast, and GenesPage.com, 247 Sports. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it.
See you.
How about that, Blake? Shrader and Plumlee could not run or throw. Well, actually, they could do all 3 this year. They've already run and thrown for touchdowns in the Southeastern Conference, which is very difficult to do, especially as a true freshman. Yeah. Which I don't think people –
playing uphill in half your games or more.
I don't think most of the fans gave the 2 young men enough credit for what they accomplished last year. But anyway.
They could be catching – in Mike Leach's system, he could have 35 catches this year, which would lead the team from last, 2 seasons.
Oh, man. You can't help but laugh when you say that.
Dude, that's because misery is – only bearable if it's enjoyable.
So the 2 say this out loud for everybody. Let's all have a kumbaya moment. Garrett Shrader and John Rice Plumlee, who started the Egg Bowl, and I thought the young men played outstanding considering the circumstances, could be playing a different position against Florida and LSU. Another position.
Remarkable.
It is. Steve Palazzolo coming up next on Dak Prescott and Drew Brees and all the fun QB play in the NFL. They'll join us on the Parish Cane Break Brewing guest line. We're live in the Bank Plus studio. Welcome in.